What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of The Block is Hot. So recently, the crypto market has just been going absolutely insane. We're finally going in an upwards trend. We were going down for so long. And with this, I was thinking to myself, what is the best strategy as far as Cardano goes? Is it CNFTs? Is it yield farming? Is it getting into the DeFi projects? Is it simply holding Cardano? And I was doing some thinking, and I believe, personally, that Cardano is in a very, very unique situation, and it's actually the first of its kind. So in this video, I'm going to be going over what I think is personally the best idea as far as the Cardano ecosystem goes. Now, there's strategies that are beyond the Cardano ecosystem, but this strategy is just within the Cardano ecosystem, because I know there's a lot of Cardano maxis that watch my YouTube videos. But yeah, I'm going to be going over why I think Cardano is a unique situation, and I'm also going to be telling you guys my personal strategy and what I think is going to happen in a non-financial advice way, because obviously, guys, I do not know everything. But without further ado, let's get into it. First things first, guys, the overall market has been going absolutely crazy. And if you watch my CNFT market update video that I released on Saturday, you already have a general idea of why I believe this sort of thing is happening. But as far as this goes, all of these coins are going up. And in particular, Cardano has gone up a lot. It has gone up 32% this week alone and was actually one of the top 5 largest gainers this week for the top 100 largest coins. Now, there's 3 main reasons that Cardano has been going up a lot recently. Reason number 1 is just the fact that everything has been going up recently. So of course, Cardano is going to go up as well. Reason number 2, though, is that in September, we had the smart contracts hard fork. And then everyone was thinking that all these projects were going to come out soon. And then they didn't, and then they didn't, and then they didn't. And then Sunday Swap finally came out and we had a nice little pop off, but then there was so much congestion and it kind of, stopped in its tracks and then jumped down again and then went down again and down again. So we were already in an undervalued position. And the third reason is, and the reason I made the whole TVL video on Saturday, is because a lot more money is going to start flowing into Cardano because all of these DeFi projects are finally starting to come out. Projects like MinSwap, where now we can finally yield farm and make money in this ecosystem. So obviously, if you can make money in an ecosystem, more people are going to come into that ecosystem. And one of the big things that I was comparing this to, or what I think is going to happen with Cardano, is I think it's going to have a very similar situation to Phantom, where all of a sudden all this TVL poured into Phantom and then Phantom blew up as a result. Now, I highly recommend that you guys watch my TVL video that I just posted on Saturday, because I went in a deeper dive in this. But the whole point that I want to bring up in this video is that Cardano is in a very unique situation. The majority of these blockchains, pretty much all of them from what I know of, started out with smart contracts. I can't really think of any that didn't do this besides Cardano, because the main difference between Cardano and Ethereum, guys, was that Ethereum was like, okay, we're going to come out as a blockchain and we're going to start off having smart contracts. So then that way we can build up our whole DeFi ecosystem and decentralized applications and all that stuff. And then Ethereum's like, we'll focus on scalability and proof of stake with ETH 2.0 at a later date. And then Cardano took the opposite approach. Cardano is like, hey man, we're going to start off with proof of stake, and then we're going to eventually build up to smart contracts. And once we have smart contracts, now we're going to have all these different decentralized applications and exchanges come onto our blockchain. Now, the interesting thing is I believe Cardano was the only blockchain to really do this. And if you look at the total TVL that has been going into Cardano, now that some of these projects have finally started coming out, it's only at 440 million, which is the 22nd smallest or largest TVL going into a blockchain. So all of these other blockchains are bigger. But what's interesting about Cardano here is that Cardano is the 7th largest coin, and Cardano is the 4th largest blockchain if you count XRP. Now, all of these other blockchains that are a lot larger have so much more TVL, so their market cap to TVL ratio is a lot smaller. And then if you look at Cardano, for example, it's at 89, which is absolutely insane. And I brought up in that TVL video that you can look at this number, this ratio, in one of 2 ways. You can either say, hey guys, if the TVL to market cap ratio is really small, maybe that means that the overall blockchain is undervalued and that the money that's flowing in isn't necessarily equating to the correct price of the blockchain. The other way you can look at it is you can say, holy crap, if Cardano is already at this price with this little TVL, then what's going to happen if the TVL 10x's and gets to 5 billion or 10 billion like their main competitors such as BSC and Solana? Now, the whole reason that I brought all of that up is to basically paint a picture of why I think Cardano is actually very unique in this situation and why we have to change our game plan. Because in my min swap farming video, I mentioned that I've never experienced a time where my impermanent loss outweighed my yield farming rewards if I got a blockchain and its main DEX. So for example, Phantom. If I had a yield farm with Phantom and Spirit Swap or Spooky Swap, for example, most of the time they went up together. And a lot of times, if you look at all these different blockchains, most of the time the DeFi projects in that blockchain will go up with their main blockchain. But what's interesting is Cardano, because of its unique situation and how it was already so large before it brought on these projects, and because these new projects are so new, it's actually been the opposite. And we've actually been seeing a lot of sell-off on these different DeFi projects, such as Flip, such as Meld, such as GT. Most of the time, Sunday was going down. CNFT. I mean, you can go down this list, guys. The majority of them have been going down, and you can kind of see here. And what's happening is all of this money that usually would go into Cardano as well as its DeFi projects, if it acted like another blockchain, are instead being sold and then being repositioned back into ADA. And because of that, we have to change our strategy. And because of that, I put out a warning just recently that I don't think yield farming is the best strategy as of right now. So what is the best strategy? So guys, the only way for me to really paint a picture of the strategy and what I think is going to happen is that I had to go on Paint and just start, putting some text out and drawing some pictures. But let's get into this. What do I think is happening here? Well, guys, for the longest time, we were in a downwards trend or a sideways market. I mean, this has really been happening for months now. And when this happens, people have a mindset of, okay, well, instead of being in these cryptos, just holding them and, going from 32K to 43K to 40, that whole thing, people are like, hey, I'm going to do one of two things. I'm going to put that money into NFTs and hopefully I can flip NFTs and make more money doing that, simply because we're not very bullish, so I'm not going to miss out on any sort of coin. And I'm also going to get into yield farming maybe Anchor Protocol where you don't have any risk, stable coin farming. Maybe you get into some other DEXs you're bullish on and you do yield farming, and maybe those APRs are going to outweigh simply holding these different coins in this sideways trading market. And maybe those, impermanent loss is going to be limited during that time because we're not making too many crazy movements. But then what happens is we do what just happened last week, and that was Bitcoin broke a really key resistance level of 43K. And now we reverse this downwards or sideways trading trend. And now we're in a bullish trend. And usually what happens is it goes in 4 different phases from what I've noticed. Phase number 1 is the Bitcoin and Ethereum phase, where we start off with Bitcoin pumping and everything else following. But for the most part, it's Bitcoin goes up a lot, Ethereum slightly lags behind, and then some of these other altcoins and some of these other projects will go up a little with it. But for the most part, it's going to be Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then we get a little more greedy, and this is when we are a 5 out of 10 in greed, and we start getting into some larger market cap altcoins. So instead of the top 2 where it takes a lot more money to move it, we start getting into maybe coins in the top 50. We get into Cardano, Solana, AVAX, Terra Luna, like some of these major blockchains, Crypto.com, right? Some of these major ones where, yes, it's a little more risk than Bitcoin or Ethereum, but we have a higher potential of making more money because they aren't as hard to move. The next phase of this, guys, is we get into smaller market cap altcoins. This is when we get a little more bullish or a little more greedy, and people start looking for stuff outside of the top 50 largest coins. Maybe they're getting into different DeFi projects. Maybe they're getting into, just larger coins, right? The next phase of this, though, guys, is when we're super greedy and we're super bullish, maybe a 9 out of 10. And this is when we really start seeing meme coins, game coins, metaverse coins, and NFTs pump again. Because these are like the high risk and speculative assets, and money starts flowing into them because we're getting really greedy and bullish. And what we're experiencing right now is pretty damn close to this 9 out of 10 as far as bullishness right now. Now, we might go back a little bit in a lot of the strategies strategy is going to depend on what the overall market does, but this is usually what happens. And I hope that some of you guys listened to my CNFT market update video, because I literally was saying how Doge on Mars was going to go stupid, and it went stupid. It went up like 80% in 2 days. It went up like 45% today alone. But if we continue to stay very bullish and get even more bullish, then most of the time you're going to make a lot more money in that phase 4 than you would in phase 3, than you would in phase 2, than you would in phase 1. But the key is, guys, is we want to jump to these different phases before they happen. And I kind of drew this little chart here where phase 1 is Bitcoin and Ethereum, and we go up a lot if you're in Bitcoin and Ethereum rather than these NFTs and yield farms. You were in Bitcoin and Ethereum, and we start pushing up and you make some money. But then eventually that kind of levels out and maybe goes down a little bit, and you're not going to make as much as on Bitcoin Ethereum as you would on larger market cap altcoins. So then that's when you're now in phase 2, larger market cap altcoins, and you're going to make more money than you would just holding Bitcoin and Ethereum. And the same thing goes for smaller market cap altcoins, and the same thing goes for meme coins, game coins, whatever. So think of this as like waves, and we want to be in the next wave before this wave ends and the next one starts. So for example, Bitcoin and Ethereum started pumping. We needed to get out around here, and we needed to transition into this wave 2 or this phase 2. And hopefully we got in over here into that phase 2. And then we got those gains. And then hopefully we get into that phase 3 and we get those gains. And hopefully we get in before phase 4 starts and we get those gains. And that's just kind of how I think of things if you're trying to make a lot of different trades. And as far as a time frame goes, it really just depends on how bullish we get and how quick we get. That part is really hard to time, but you can start noticing these different factors, like meme coins starting to pump up a lot right now. That means to me that we're getting very greedy and very bullish. Now, Cardano is almost a phase inside this overall market phase. Cardano is almost its own ecosystem. So right now what's been happening, and where's my thing? Right now what's been happening, guys, is people were in CNFTs, and just recently they were in, min swap, and, the TVL is going up a lot. Some of these projects are just now coming out. And what really is happening, guys, is money has been flowing from both of these, and it's been going into ADA. And all of these DeFi projects that usually will go up with their own blockchain have not been doing that. And the same thing with CNFTs, is you would think, if Cardano's going up a lot, that CNFTs would get some of those gains. But in reality, guys, most of the money is coming out of those right now, and they're going into ADA. And the reason is because ADA is the lowest amount of risk, and they're like, hey, I don't know if this specific CNFT is going to go up a lot. And I don't know if this DeFi project is going to go up a lot right now, but I do know that I can count on ADA. And ADA is almost, in a sense, like Bitcoin for this Cardano ecosystem. And then what happens, guys, is as we get more greedy, ADA gets way too difficult to move because ADA is already such a high market cap coin. And then what happens is people are like, okay, well, why don't I get into some of these DeFi projects? Like, why don't I get into Meld Protocol? Why don't I get into MinSwap, LQ, Sunday Swap? Like, why don't I get into some of those projects instead? Because they're a lot smaller and they're a lot easier to move. So that's what happens, guys. We get a lot of money start flowing into the DeFi section of things, and then all of a sudden, we make a shit ton of money from that. And then what happens after this is people are already in DeFi. They already have the Nami wallet. They already have all of this set up. We get a little more greedy. People get a little more speculative, and then they want to jump into CNFTs again. And instead of this having been a option in a sideways trade to potentially make more money, now all of a sudden it's the option because potentially it can move the most. Because a CNFT, for example, might be $300 and have a market cap of, let's just say, 5 million. And then DeFi, these DeFi coins might have a market cap of, let's just say, 50 million. right? So it's about 10 times smaller. And then all of a sudden, when you look at ADA might be 50 billion, right? I know it's more like 35 billion or whatever the case is, but as you see here, guys, it's a lot easier to move this stuff down here. But because it's a lot easier to move, it also means it's a lot easier to move down. And that means the risk is higher, which means that the greed and the bullishness has to be higher in the market for these different phases to really start kicking off. And right now we're not there yet. And we have no idea how long it's going to take to get into this section. But in the meantime, these two sections, people are like, you know, screw that. Let me be in this section that has the highest guarantee or the lowest amount of risk to reward. So with all that being said, what is my exact strategy going on here? And sorry it took a while for me to get here. It's just important for me to give you guys my thought process rather than me just saying, oh, buy this, buy that. You know, you guys have to understand where I'm coming from. And I know people can always skip stuff, but regardless, what is my strategy? Well, guys, I'm a very active trader. And I like getting into swing trades because you can make more money being active than passive, but I know not everyone can be as active. What I personally am going to do myself, and this is if the market remains bullish, let me say if the market remains bullish, is I think being very heavy on ADA right now makes the most sense. I think in the short term, all the DeFi projects on Cardano are going to continue to go down. And I think in the short term, CNFTs are going to go down with the exception of top tier blue chips. I think ADA is going to have the main pump first. So I'm going to put most of my money into ADA as far as the Cardano ecosystem. I have money in other places like Doge on Mars and a lot of other places. As far as Cardano though goes, I'm going to wait until Cardano hits like $2, and then I'm going to slowly start putting money into DeFi coins. At this point, DeFi coins should have taken a hit because people don't want to miss out on ADA gains. So now no one's paying attention to DeFi coins, and that's why I like to pay attention. Sell a portion of my ADA, start putting into DeFi coins. If Cardano then hits $3, which is kind of my price target over the next couple months, potentially over the next couple 2 months maybe. If Cardano hits $3, then that's when I'm going to sell almost all of my Cardano besides maybe 10. And then I'm going to blanket DeFi projects on Cardano. So I'm going to blanket Sunday Swap, Meld, MinSwap, AADA, Ardana, Maladex when it comes out. Regardless, blanket it because we have no idea which ones are going to perform the best. So it's a lot better to have an average. Now, if I was to guess which one is going to perform the best, it would probably be maybe Meld or Sunday Swap, potentially. But I would blanket it. And then what's going to happen, hopefully, is that Cardano is going to get too hard to move because at this point, we're going to be near a 100 billion market cap. And it's going to be a lot harder to move. And now we hope that all the people that sold their DeFi in order to get into Cardano, now we hope that they start getting into DeFi. But we just got into DeFi before they did, right? So now we're going to hope that all of a sudden we made Cardano go from $1 to $3. We made a 3x off of that. Now we get into the DeFi projects. So let's just say Sunday Swap Rich right now is worth 100 million ADA, 100 million market cap. It's worth like 80 million ADA. Now what we do is we hope that that can 5x or 10x because these projects are a lot smaller, so they're a lot easier to move. And if you watch my TVL video, you'll know that I think there's going to be so much more TVL going into this space, and that's going to also pump up those DeFi projects eventually. But I think it's going to pump up Cardano more so, at least in the beginning. Then what happens is once these DeFi projects start going crazy and pumping a lot, now we know that all those people in those DeFi projects have a NAMI wallet. They know how to do this stuff, right? So now we know that there's going to be a lot more exposure to CNFTs. And then that's when we pull a lot of that money out of those DeFi projects. We take a lot of those profits and we put it all into CNFTs. That is what I'm personally doing because I personally believe, and a lot of people are going to think I'm crazy, and I am crazy, so don't take this for the 10 commandments here, what I'm saying, but I personally think that CNFTs are going to be the overall biggest gainer. So if you didn't want to be super active right now and you just wanted to invest in one thing in Cardano, I would invest in CNFTs. I would be putting the majority of your money into CNFTs because if we remain bullish and if we go into that phase 4 of the overall market or phase 3 when it comes to Cardano, I think we're going to see just a tremendous amount of money going into CNFTs. And the reason I bought Ape Society recently for 1,400 ADA and now it's like 1,1900 ADA is because I think that these projects are going to absolutely explode this year with all this TVL and all this DeFi and Cardano just going up in price a lot. And I really believe that a lot of these projects, a lot of these CNFT projects right now are going to have a minimum of a 10x. Some of them are going to have a 50x. Some of them are going to have a 100x. And I'm not a moon boy where I put that in my thumbnails and all this shit. You guys know that if you watch my channel. But if I'm being completely honest of how I think, whether I'm right or wrong, is I think that stuff is going to happen. I think the Ape Society could potentially be 50K by the end of the year. I think that Space Buds would be over 100K by the end of the year. And I think a lot of these major blue chips are going to be 30K, like Boss Cat Rocket Club, you know, Pavia might be like 5K a piece of land. If I'm just doing some crazy predictions here, maybe we have Clay Nation stuff going for 30 to 40K. I really think that's going to happen because I think we're going to have another NFT boom, especially if people get really greedy. And then at the same time, if you look at Solana, they already have like 3 or 4 ape projects that are over $70,000, $80,000 floors, or at least over $50,000 floors. So it's not too crazy to think that Cardano, which has a similar market cap of Solana, doesn't do something near that, especially since CNFTs have such a stronger community, and Cardano, in my opinion, has such a stronger following and is a better overall blockchain compared to Solana. Unfortunately, we're not at the same speed level. But yeah, I see that stuff happening. So I guess the next question that you guys may have is, what do you do depending on what you currently have right now? Well, if you have a bunch of Cardano, keep your Cardano, stake it, go into ISPO pools like Ray Network and make your ADA. Don't yield farm. If you're in a bunch of DeFi projects, I think in the short term, sell a lot of those DeFi projects. We could have a boom anyways, but I think I think statistically we're more likely for DeFi projects to go down and more of that money to go into Cardano than DeFi projects exploding, at least in the short term. So I would sell most of your DeFi projects and put that into Cardano. If you have a bunch of CNFTs right now, what do you do? Well, you have a couple options. I think right now, the best option, if you haven't sold already, is probably just hold. Now, if you're super, super heavy into CNFTs, like over 80% of your money, maybe you sell some of those CNFTs and you transition some of that money into ADA and you hopefully do what I said, but with just not as much. Or what you do is you sell some of your smaller CNFTs and you get into blue chip NFTs because those have been holding really well. And I don't think those are going to take as much of a hit as, some of these DeFi projects or some of these smaller CNFTs if ADA does go on this rocket ship. For me, what I did, I personally sold some of my CNFTs, had that in ADA, leaving that in ADA. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else I want to say here, but that's pretty much it. I know this is a long-winded thing, and there's a lot of different things that we could do here, and there's a lot of different strategies, but personally, I'm going to try to capitalize off of that wave and still be heavy in the CNFTs I have because I just don't think now's a good time to sell. I really should have sold them like a month ago or 2 months ago, but we have no idea when the first wave is going to happen. Like the first wave is always the hardest wave to predict, but in my opinion, the waves after are more easy to predict. So it was really hard to predict this bullish wave of ADA going up. But now that I know that ADA is going up and we're getting more bullish right now, I know that DeFi is next, and I know that CNFTs are next. So now it's a little bit easier for me to swing trade and play around as far as my strategy goes. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up my strategy, guys. I know this was like a whole thing, and my head kind of hurts now, but I think, in my opinion, this is what's going to happen. And remember, guys, I am just one person. Listen to other people too. I could be totally wrong, and don't be mad at me if I am wrong. But this is just what I'm personally doing. And I think it's a pretty good shot, and I think there's pretty good reasoning behind it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope everyone here has an awesome day.